G'day folks and welcome to an Oz Cyclone Chasers Cyclone video update. Today the 12th of January 2015. My name's Chris Nitzo. This update is sponsored by our major sponsor this season, Campbell Scientific Australia, when measurements matter. Well, taking a look at the nation, over the northwestern parts of the continent we've got very little activity occurring, but as we head further and further to the east we see activity getting more and more widespread. So we've got a lot of activity here around the Gulf of Carpentaria. We're going to be watching this area here around Barkly, the Barkly Tablelands region in the Northern Territory, spawning currently there is a little weak low there. It's going to push northwards, it's then going to push westwards across the rest of the week, and at this stage, depending on the computer models that you look at, we could be looking at a new tropical low forming, or new tropical low becoming established near the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, the southwestern top end coastline, or the Nth Kimberley, as we head into next weekend. Over to the east, we have a continuation of very strong monsoonal flow up here. We've got a tropical low located here that was expected to move south and southeast. It didn't. It interacted with another low that was located further here, the one that we've been watching for the last few days, and consequently it tracked back in towards a central location here between the two lows, and has tracked back towards the west or west-southwest in the last 24 hours ago, and then since then, the last sort of 6 hours or so, started tracking a little bit further to the south. Across the southeast parts of Queensland, we saw some very heavy rainfall yesterday, and falls of up to 200 millimetres were recorded in the Gold Coast region. Across Australia in play right now, we have a monsoon trough across the far north part of Queensland linked to two low pressure systems. Obviously these two other low pressure systems that we have been watching, both are now not expected to become cyclones. They're now just part of one big broad trough. There is a much better defined low level circulation centre with this eastern one, but overall not expecting these to become cyclones now, which is disappointing from an OCC perspective. I guess it's good from everyone else's perspective though, from the public. Over here, we've also got a broken monsoon trough. Now, what we're expecting, by the way, is this little low pressure system will push north and then west, and what we'll see is a reinvigoration of that monsoon trough. So that monsoon trough will re-intensify up here around the northwestern parts of the territory late in the week, or later in the week. Here's what used to be the Solomon Islands low, expected to track in an east-southeasterly direction from pretty well where it is now. And an almost identical track, and in fact I think what's happened here is that the computer models are just finding it difficult to pick up the second low, and so they're just pushing everything out here to the east-southeast. Even the very high resolution GFS model is really struggling with that second circulation. You can see there's only really one circulation in the Coral Sea, and if we track this circulation as we go through to tomorrow afternoon, you can see here tracking in that southeast or south-southeast direction, and then it really does struggle to do anything with it. So you can see here it pushes it southeast. New little circulation developing here to the west. Now that's quite common along a monsoon trough to see new circulations forming and dying, and you can see here that new circulation pushing to the south. No weather associated with that system, and you can see here washes out into a trough. The latest European model is also struggling to pick up the distinct circulations, and so it's just forming one big trophy area of low pressure here, and pushing it fairly rapidly away here to the east-southeast. And you can see by about by about Thursday, we have absolutely no sign of it off the Queensland coast. This weekend over Queensland, we're going to see a fairly vigorous trough system. Now, that could be the monsoon trough combining with an inland trough over Queensland, and what we might see is the development of a circulation. Now, the computer models are not quite sure exactly where that's going to happen. So the European here is showing it well off the Central Queensland coast. However, the GFS is showing the system forming sometime on the Saturday and much closer to the tropical coast of Queensland, or the Central Coast and Whitsundays district. But then what the models do agree on is that the system pushes fairly rapidly away to the east. At least that is the case in the medium term. In the longer term, they do some pretty crazy things about it, but that's outside the scope of our video updates. The good news is that despite whether or not a circulation forms near or off the coast of Queensland, we're going to see moderate to heavy rainfalls across northeastern Queensland. And if we look at accumulated totals here as we get into Friday and then Saturday, you're seeing a fairly widespread rain event across Queensland on Friday, Saturday, and then even as we head into Sunday, you can see here 24-hour accumulated falls of up to about an inch is quite standard across the northeastern half of Queensland. Alright, moving on to this slightly more interesting low over the Northern Territory. Now, tomorrow night the low is likely to be located very close to the southwest Gulf of Carpentaria, and from that position it's expected to track westwards across the base of the top end and then be located somewhere around that Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. And what you'll see if we zoom in a little bit more at the Northern Territory region is that we're going to see probably a stronger monsoonal flow develop as this particular low tracks to the west. So you can see here the low on the Saturday night or Saturday afternoon is located in this area here, and what we have along the Northern Territory coastline is a very vigorous monsoonal flow. So we're going to see a lot of rain from that particular system if it stays perched there for any length of time. In the longer term, the computer model guidance pushes it offshore, but with varying levels of intensification. So you can see here the Euro has it off the coast of Cape Leveque, and if we take a look at the GFS for a very similar time frame, we have the system still located here over the base of the Kimberley. And if we then have a look at the very far eastern parts of the Kimberley, I should say, and if we have a look at the high resolution version of the GFS, we have a tropical cyclone off the Kimberley coastline. Now, that is something that we'll talk about in our subscriber updates through the week, but we won't mention it here again until our next update. Our next update will be on Thursday for the public, because those Queensland lows don't look like they're going to amount to anything. This looks like the next big thing, and this won't be happening until next week, if at all. Rainfall for today, well, we already know where the rain's falling. Over the northeastern half of South Australia, there is some isolated activity across Queensland. Certainly some more potential there for some more rain across the far southern coastline of Queensland as well. Monsoonal activity over north of Queensland and some isolated monsoonal, more convective shower and storm activity located here in the far northern parts of the territory. And also, very interestingly, a little bit of weather for the Pilbara and southern Kimberley as well. Now tomorrow things dry out over WA, very isolated activity there. The trough system starts to take a bit more of an effect here across the eastern half of the territory. Remember, we're watching this low getting up to the base of the southwest Gulf of Carpentaria there and then pushing across to the west from Wednesday on. Monsoonal activity remaining fairly strong across the North Peninsula, fine across most of the Queensland coast except for the southeast corner, and isolated showers and storms becoming more widespread tomorrow across inland Queensland. On Wednesday, those showers and storms across Queensland starting to become even more widespread, and that activity now starting to ramp up across the base of the top end here as that tropical low starts to push further to the west and its associated trough line with it. We can start to see an increase in monsoonal activity here over the northeast Arnhem District, continuation of fairly strong monsoonal activity over the far north peninsula. As we get to Thursday, we really see that monsoon starting to ramp up across the northwestern parts of the territory, even the North Kimberley getting in on the action now. And Queensland, you can certainly see the increase in activity here across most of Queensland, or most of the northeastern half of Queensland. Not too many of those making the coast. Some will, certainly, but most of them remaining inland at this stage until Friday. And then by Friday, that activity will push towards the coast. And then on the weekend, it gets even rainier across the coastal districts of Queensland. And look at this monsoon up here, cranking again over the Northern Territory. This is a fantastic outcome for the northern half of the territory, because in the initial stages of the monsoon were quite weak. So when it first got over, it was only a 10 to 15 knot monsoon. So this one's a cranking 20 to 25 knot monsoon, and it's going to create a lot of rain for that northwestern top end coastline. Remembering, of course, that by Friday we're starting to look at the potential for that tropical low. Could it develop, and whether or not it could get offshore. 4 days after Friday, you can see what the models think. The models are going absolutely psycho with rainfall up here in the northwest Kimberley. Sorry, the northwest Kimberley, and also the northwest coast of the top end. Also, you can see here a big increase over the northeastern half of Queensland of rainfall associated with the development, or that trough pushing further to the east. Just letting you know, if you have bought our iPhone app, it is ready now to be updated, so please head into your iTunes and update your Cyclone Chaser's iPhone or iPad app to the latest version. If you have any problems with that, there's a support email there. Please send us an email, let us know if there are problems there. And to download the app, you can go onto Google Play Store and the iTunes Store. Thanks very much for watching this update, folks. We'll have another update for you on Thursday night. Likely to be a little later than normal, probably around the 8 to 9 p.m. Queensland time mark. We look forward to seeing what the Queensland trough will have in store for a lot of the coastal parts of Queensland. Hopefully a lot of rain associated with it. And most of all, we look forward to seeing what is going to happen with that Northern Territory low. All right, we'll talk then. Have a great week.